we had no money, so I had all my friends that were basically paid on commission, and we had like uniforms, and we were our own sales force, going door to door, and I was delivering in a rented U-Haul for the first 6 months, and it was a nightmare.
Hey everyone, this is the Founder Hour. We're sitting here with Ryan Emmons. He's the CEO and founder of Waiakea. They are a sustainable, premium Hawaiian volcanic water. And Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so you grew up in California, well, sort of. You're, splitting your time in childhood, living in Santa Barbara, as well as going back and forth, from Hawaii. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in Santa Barbara, and basically, not a bad place to grow up, by any means, and spent my summers and winters in Hawaii, pretty much every year, because I have a lot of Hawaiian family, on my mom's side. Mom grew up there, had a couple generations. I'm Haole, which is what Hawaiians would call basically like a white foreigner, usually not with a good context. But all my cousins on my mom's side are Hapa, so they're all half. And yeah, just had a really good upbringing being on both those places. Super active lifestyle, very much focused on obviously like environmental stewardship and kind of how we can cohabitate and live within our means. And had also a really, really passionate mom and dad that were really into community involvement. And so, over time, those are kind of the principles that ended up really being instilled in the brand. Yeah.
Awesome. And so, you decided to go to school here in California, went to USC here in the heart of LA. What was kind of your, vision for college? Like, what did you hope to accomplish when you went to college?
So I was lucky because, like, a lot of people obviously going into college don't know what they want to do. I had kind of done some entrepreneurial things in high school. I had started this, like, really cheesy board game called Santa Barbara-opoly. Yeah, it's as horrible as it sounds.
Do you still have one of those games?
Dude, I had literally like 10,000 board games left over that were in my parents' basement until like last year, and we donated them all to the Unity shop in Santa Barbara. But we raised, basically we got all these local businesses to pay for spaces on the board, and we raised like $40,000 for Katrina.
That's brilliant.
Back in high school. So that was like my first little taste, and I loved product development, loved branding, loved the community involvement aspect. But yeah, so I kind of was like, maybe I'll do something like that, similar kind of triple bottom line business. I, freshman year, had really kind of, the background of Waiakea was my Hawaiian uncle had access to this water source. And we never ended up using that source, but it kind of piqued my curiosity. He had kind of tried to start his own bottled water business, and it had kind of hadn't really been able to get it off the ground per se. And, that piqued my curiosity, so I started basically obsessing about everything like water related. So like bulk water trade between nations in these giant Medusa bags that carry like 100 acres of water, and literally towboats. Not towboats. Towboats. What are they called? Anyway, we'll assume that they're called towboats.
Yeah.
But they basically they would tow these giant Medusa bags that flow underwater and are able to kind of go with the currents, with the naturally kind of, I believe it's called like undulating or whatever. And I was super obsessed about that, and I thought it was like really interesting. A lot of countries in the Middle East had started doing it. Australia started doing it, but the cost of setting up these bags and all the infrastructure was like tens of millions of dollars. I'm like 18. I'm like, probably not super practical. And then I also started looking a lot at water infrastructure because of all the water waste that we have in our plumbing and in our water systems throughout the U.S.
And this is all when you're 18 years old?
Yeah, I'm just like doing research. USC has like an incredible I had $300,000 worth of research reports relating to water that I had access to at 18, which was sick. And I'm like a very obsessive person, and when I like kind of lock into something, I'm like all in. And you can ask my family and my girlfriend about it, to the point where sometimes like they're like, you need to chill out and like go outside for a second. But so I was obsessive, looking at every aspect of water, and ended up coming and looking at CPG. And just saw an opportunity because in the super premium water space, you had, a bunch of players, but typically only about 5 major super premium waters in the U.S. And they were really only differentiated through an exotic origination story and their design. And what I saw was that none of them were addressing these trends towards environmental packaging, environmentally friendly packaging, which was a huge deal. That was actually the only reason why the year before, actually it wasn't because of the recession that the bottled water industry took a huge hit. It was because of all the negative PR associated with the environmental concerns. Right. And I was like, no one is addressing these. Everyone's greenwashing. No one is addressing the trends towards natural alkalinity, towards electrolytes. Now a lot of them have started to address that. Mm-hmm. And none of them are creating engaging brands. If you look at the content that they're putting out, it's like their Instagram or their, at the time, Facebook, it's just like a celebrity holding a bottle. Totally. Or a regular person holding a bottle that's like in a bougie setting. And like, I don't give a shit. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah, and I think you guys, I mean, not to cut you off, but I think
please.
You guys have done a fantastic job with just the branding. And I mean, you've made water sexy, which is weird. It's like, water is water.
It's a little hot, yeah.
But, you guys have made water, at least when I look at your branding, your website, the social media, all that kind of stuff, I want to be engaged with it. I want to buy it and just try it out because I'm like, it looks good. Like, I'm gonna look good if I drink this water,
And I think the goal there was really to elevate it to being something more than just being known as a premium bottled water. Yeah. So having content, like, people aren't gonna engage with just a bunch of photos of the bottle. They're gonna engage with a incredible sunset photo that is showcasing someone's story of the work they did in a reforestation project on the Big Island. Right. With beautiful original content that's building around this live healthy, live sustainably, live ethically brand mantra that Waiakea has. So anyway, we spent basically once I realized that I felt like we had an opportunity, and obviously my professors were like, you're crazy, you're going up against multi-billion-dollar companies, like, you're never going to get shelf space and all this shit. But I felt like we really did have a niche. I'm really glad I launched it. I started to think about it and launch it early because I was still naive enough to think that we could get into the industry. But I kind of latched onto this early because of my obsessiveness and because I really saw the market potential. Also because when you look at premium bottled water, it's one of the few beverages that's scalable in literally every single channel. Mm-hmm. Food service, fitness, hospitality, convenience, conventional, natural, international. And on top of that, Hawaii, if you look at Hawaii as a brand, Hawaii is synonymous internationally with high quality, and is arguably one of the most exotic places in the world. But again, high quality, not only in terms of what it's producing and the products that are coming out of Hawaii, but also because of of how it's connected, obviously, with it's a state. It's in the U.S. Versus a lot of the other, Fiji doesn't necessarily have that. Fiji is an amazing brand, but if you look at internationally, do people really care about Fiji as much as they do Hawaii, and do they know about Fiji as much as they do Hawaii? No. And so kind of started to really develop the platform around that. Mm-hmm. And then we started looking at the success of Fiji. What things can we kind of duplicate or kind of piggyback on? One of them was, the iconic square bottle, okay? Because they were the first PET bottle, so plastic, even though ours are post-consumer recycled plastic. So we were like, we don't have tens of millions of dollars in premium marketing money, so how are we gonna kind of be able to immediately solidify ourselves as a premium brand without that? Okay, let's kind of, continue where they left off so that people already know, hey, this is a premium product, without us having to spend all that money. And we started to develop the color, the brand, everything while I was still in college.
So this was all in your classes at SE still?
Yeah, I was
All
working
this
with my
stuff
Hawaiian
was-
cousin
Yeah.
on the design. We did everything, and then I had a co-founder who was an offensive lineman for USC, Matt Meyer, who left about 3 years ago. Still on the board, still really, really good friend, still has all his equity. Yeah, we got to a point where finished the business plan class junior year, and
But so you graduated, like you stayed all 4 years?
Yeah, we graduated
Like,
early.
Was it hard?
So we
like, while you're in
graduated-
college, going to your classes, running this
yeah,
company?
so I was like really nervous that I was not going to be able to graduate in time because we had like set this hard deadline. We just graduated a semester early, but Matt and I had set this hard deadline, and we were doing like, I think we were doing like 24 units our last semester, and yeah, so it was a little bit gnarly. And I remember I had like 3 finals one day that semester, and I was really worried that I was not going to pass at least one of them, and it would fuck up everything. So I was so anxious, and we had like set up product deadlines for when we were going to launch this thing. I was like, we were ready to go, and we had kind of mentally checked out at that point. But yeah, passed, and we basically got to a point where we moved to a loft downtown, and that was like our hub. And I started having a bunch of my fraternity bros and a bunch of my friends kind of help us out as interns, and started kind of hitting the streets, getting pre-orders. And then June of 2012 is when we had our first product and our first sale, which was actually at our first 2 sales. One was at Calmart. Our second store was actually a restaurant, Bottega Louie. And then that's how it all started.
Obviously it's very impressive. My question to you is, you're going to school, you're starting this company. You did say you were naive, obviously, at that point, because you were jumping in and trying to battle these billion-dollar companies. What was driving you? I mean, besides being confident in yourself and your abilities, I mean, what made you believe that you could do this?
So I think that's where the naivete comes in, because like no one in their right mind should like think when they're 20, 21 that they'll be able to start a premium bottled water company that's going to compete against everyone. I think it was based off the like focus groups that we had done, all the market research. Like, I'm obsessive, but if I'm like obsessive enough, and I think my feasibility analysis is really, really solid, and I've been doing this for 3.5 years, I kind of trusted my gut that we really had something, even though I had plenty of people that were telling me that I was crazy. So I was convinced at that point that there was a huge market opportunity, that it was scalable, and that if I was able to hit certain inflection points, we would be able to be successful. And I really also believed in the brand, and everyone else did. So when we got it in, when we first had our test product and we were showing people what it was all about, and we were building out our website, we were building out the brand, the reception that we got was like really, really good. And so it'd be different if I did my feasibility analysis and I put out a product and everyone was like, bro, you should probably just like get out while you can. Mm-hmm. But like that wasn't the case. I had people that were super stoked, and I had stores that were like, sign me up. And then when it came to actually us launching the product, all of a sudden it started selling. And that's kind of when I was like, oh shit, we got something here.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's water, and so the like, what would you say, like the common kind of thought process for founders or even students who want to be founders and entrepreneurs and kind of start their own businesses, looking at really niche kind of markets and industries and projects that maybe don't exist, and oftentimes get burned out or create something that no one wants just because it's niche.
For sure.
What would you tell those people who may be thinking about going into a highly competitive market, because they're industries that are archaic, that may be competitive, but could be subject to innovation and
For sure.
revolution. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think that a lot of people, like the first argument in any industry that a lot of people have against an industry is it's so competitive, or what is there to stop anyone else from doing it? Okay, and that to me is just like such like an elementary response to anything, and that's been proven time and time again. You can duplicate any app, you can duplicate any apparel item, what have you. It's all about brand building. And so I think in terms of understanding the potential of your product or of your company, I think it starts with the understanding that there are going to be plenty of people that are going to be telling you like anyone can do this, and that you need to build a brand unless you do have a patent or you have some IP that's super powerful, that's very unique. Yeah. But with both of those things, if you do have the IP or if you don't and you're trying to build a brand in a competitive industry, you need to know your market potential, you need to know the scalability, you need to do your feasibility analysis. Yeah. It's all the brands and all the companies that I know that have failed, the ones that have failed, it was either because they didn't run the business right, they didn't have enough capital, but they at least got to a point where they had proven out the potential of the business. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there are plenty of reasons for a business going out of business, but there were so many businesses that don't even get close to $1 million because they didn't really look at the scalability and the potential of the market, at the risks, and doing a feasibility analysis really prepares you for that to a certain extent. There's plenty of things that I had in my feasibility analysis that I, looking back, I'm like, it's like laughable. Mm-hmm. But at least I had somewhat of an idea of where I was going, and I was prepared to a certain extent because of that.
Yeah.
So
you have the idea, you have kind of a brand kind of thought of what you want the brand to be. Where do you start? Were you the one kind of cold calling people door to door, whatever it was, trying to get your water in the stores? Like, how did you go from being in one store to all the stores that you're in now? And how many is that?
Yeah, so now we're in close to like 4,000 stores, and so we'll be between probably like 7,000, 8,000 in 2018, and nationally, which is pretty exciting. But we started. We were self-distributing. We had like a couple accounts in Hilo, but the big focus, Hawaii is a very small market, and so we wanted to start in Los Angeles. So we had no money, so I had all my friends that were basically paid on commission, and we had like uniforms, and we were our own sales force, going door to door, and I was delivering in rented U-Haul for the first 6 months, and it was a nightmare. And I never want to do my own distribution again unless I actually own my own legit trucks and I have legit truck drivers, and that's a business in itself. But yeah, we were just renting U-Hauls. We were doing drop-offs ourselves, and so we built up one account after another in LA. Ended up with a base of like 50 accounts. And it had some really good, again, talk about case studies, really good minimum viable product. And it was selling, and I took that to just a little distributor. I'm not sure if they're still in business, but it was called Rick's Running Water, which is a very funny name, very relevant. But he was super small distributor. He had like 2 of his own trucks, maybe even 1. But he was a distributor based in Orange County that did a lot of stuff in LA. And I showed him our sales, and I showed him our account list, and I was like, can you distribute for us? And he was like, sure, I'll take a shot at it. And that was really like our first distributor. And then we grew out his base to like 200 accounts in LA. Started attending, we wanted to grow the brand in natural and specialty because everyone kept on telling me, you got to grow your brand in natural and specialty, Whole Foods, that's the way to do. It's the way you build a brand. In retrospect, I agree the importance of a lot of these like premium channels in terms of the brand building, but I know like 70% of the CPG brands that I'm familiar with have gone out of business because of how difficult natural and specialty is, including like UNFI and KHE, the natural distributors. But at the time, we felt like it was super important, and so we weren't making good money, but we got Whole Foods. We were attending these trade shows, getting more and more chains, more and more independents.
So was there any point in that process where you felt like things are just like not working out in a certain aspect that you felt like I'm not doing this, or like was it just kind of like a graph was pointing up ride?
No, for sure, dude. It was like really painful. I mean, it's like everyone says really like peaks and valleys, but it got to a point where we were the first like 2 years. We knew we had something because of how the product was performing. A lot of brands, they'll have like big backing and they'll spend a shit ton of their money on promotions. We didn't have any money for promotions, and so we were lucky. Like the reason why we were able to survive the first couple of years is because our product was like selling itself, but we still weren't really making any money. And I think that was, and we didn't know what we were doing. I had a team of, I had a guy that, my director of sales, who's actually still my director of sales, he came from he was a software salesman, selling like Excel training videos. You know what I mean?
Annual recurring subscriptions.
Yeah, there we go. and then like the other guys on my team, we had like 6 guys that we stuck into this like 2-bedroom house, and it was, no one had any idea what the hell they were doing at the time. I'm going to be brutally honest. And I think that was the most stressful part, was I hadn't really yet realized how important it is to have an advisory board. And so, the highs and lows were really, being stoked about closing a new deal and new sales, but also figuring out funding. I was putting all the money I had into the business that I had saved up through working throughout college. Then we started getting friends and family involved because we had to. And it was, it was kind of a free-for-all, and we were just trying to survive and build out our base, build out more case studies with the idea that eventually, we could validate the business model, validate the concept, and really raise the money that we needed to be able to scale. And so it was always, let's just get to the next inflection point, which is us, at the time, that was us doubling our sales every year. And we've still done that, and that's always been our goal. That's the big inflection point. But making sure, like, it was super stressful. We ran out of money so many times. Like, I feel like a lot of founders of CBD products have the same story, which is that they had, like, extended all their... if I were to show you here, I'll show you right now. I have literally... Look at this. I have fucking... These are all business...
He's taking out all his credit cards.
These are all business credit cards. Okay?
2,
I have...
3.
So this is 5. These are in a pocket in my backpack. I have another 7 that are in my wallet. Okay? And the point is, we were doing whatever it took. We were maximizing credit cards. I mean, my credit was like shit for a while. Now it's better because of how the company's done. But like... I was asking for loans. We were doing whatever we could to keep it alive, because at our core, the one thing that I knew, even though I was, inexperienced, I knew we had a good brand, and I knew that it was selling. So anyway, we were.
But wasn't something telling you, like, I have 12 credit cards? Like, is that normal?
No, it's not normal. It's like, but I don't know. It depends on who you ask. There are definitely plenty of people that are like, they did whatever it took, but like Califia Farms. They just, the founder of Califia Farms just did an interview with like how I built this, and he talked about kind of how he was in a similar boat. They knew that they had a great product, they believed in the product, but they went out of business so many times, and he literally asked his mother-in-law he kept on going to her for money, and eventually his wife called her mom and was like, you can't give him any more money. And, I wasn't in that situation. But
I think that's a great tip for our male listeners that are married. Make sure you have a great relationship.
Yeah, great relationship with mother-in-law.
Yeah.
Because you never know when you have to cash it in.
Absolutely. No. Absolutely.
But seriously, it's I think that's the part that scares a lot of people, is especially later on in life, when you have a family, when you have a wife, when you have a mother-in-law, it's, you don't want to ever be at that point. So that's something that I'm very thankful that I got to kind of get that out of the way early on. When I was a little naive, when I was more into, taking bigger risks. But there was a lot of anxiety with cash, and there still is. I mean, we're just finishing a raise right now for $3 million. I put in, I had like a little amount of savings that I'd had because I've had like a low salary over the last like 2 years. And I put all the remaining savings, and I actually facilitated a loan where I'm the guarantor, which I had already done.
Yeah.
So more of the story is that just, most of the lows have had to do with cash, and the other lows were also, operations focused because we have a very complicated supply chain. And we had just a lot of issues with like production, with the custom equipment that was required.
And this is all stuff that you just kind of had to learn on the fly. Like you didn't know anything about it.
I had no idea about bottling. I had
no family in this business.
No family in the
nothing.
business. Nothing. My co-founder, same thing. Like it was all steep learning curve. But the one thing that kept us going was the brand and the fact that we kept on having sales. So, the worst thing, like the thing that I'm really glad we never had to worry about was we never had a brand that didn't sell. We never had to worry about sales. And obviously we're getting to a point where, we've had to consistently innovate and look at our opportunities to be able to continue to double every year. Mm-hmm. But, our industry is so scalable in terms of all the channels. I'm still not really worried about that. What it comes back down to is, okay, do we have the systems, do we have the ops in place to be able to scale? Do I have the money to be able to scale? And really that's been consistent the whole time.
Ryan, I think we should definitely touch upon also the actual product that you're selling here. I think a lot of the listeners, and also myself, when I first, saw you and then, heard from you and kind of looked into the brand, what really kind of was interesting to me was this whole Hawaiian volcanic water, the volcanic part of it.
For sure.
It was a little, I was a little befuddled by that.
Yeah.
Until I did my research and kind of learned from you, I was a little confused. So why don't you kind of walk us through exactly what that means and, what really is going into the Waiakea water?
For sure. So, the whole basis of the Hawaiian volcanic water is really we wanted to differentiate in a category of spring waters, artesian waters, etc. And also create kind of a novelty play in terms of the mysteriousness of, what is a Hawaiian volcanic water. And it's obviously descriptive of what it's going through because it's being filtered through about 14,000 feet of porous volcanic rock. And that's what's giving it that smooth mouthfeel. That's what's enriching it with all these trace minerals, magnesium, calcium, daily recommended intake of silica, all of these things. And so for us, it was, people pick up the bottle first and foremost because of its design and its color when they see it.
It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful bottle. It's a beautiful bottle. It's my baby. I will totally accept that compliment.
Do you drink coffee out of this too? Just like
yeah.
I'm about to.
No, but honestly, I reuse my bottles all the time.
Yeah.
The nice part is it's like pretty high quality rPET, so you don't have to worry about BPA and stuff like that. But so yeah, we wanted to. It had to pop off the shelf in comparison to other brands, but at the same time, being positioned as Hawaiian volcanic water also kind of implies like functionality. It's going to pique people's curiosity. And so, that's really why we wanted to brand it that way, kind of a blue ocean strategy, if you will.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, that's, we also, the logo for us was super important. Mm-hmm. Having the volcano there, and I don't know if you guys noticed, but we actually have a volcano at the bottom of our bottle. That's a volcano with like multiple streams.
Interesting. I did recognize the top of the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the top of the bottle is obviously supposed to be a volcano as well.
Yeah, this is an amazing looking product.
Yeah.
So
I love your kind of sort of mantra, right? Is like live healthy, live sustainably, live ethically. Could you kind of like tell us a little bit more about how you came up with that?
Yeah. So
I mean, that is kind of your brand, right?
For sure, that's totally our brand, and those are kind of the pillars of how I've like lived my life growing up in Santa Barbara and Hawaii, and so that's one of the reasons why I love my brand. You know, it is reflective of like what I believe in.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, for us, it starts with the health. You know, when you filter through all that volcanic rock, again, it's enriched with all these trace minerals. It's also naturally alkaline. And it has 4 times the electrolytes of smart water, but they're naturally occurring. So your body is more easily able to absorb those naturally alkaline minerals, those natural electrolytes, versus say, tap water that has baking soda to make it have a high pH, sodium bicarbonate, or has an electrolyte packet. And then with regards to the sustainability, it was really important to us that we didn't greenwash and that we really set the tone in terms of industry standards, because a lot of people question me because they know that they consider me kind of a little bit more of like an activist, if you will, yet I own a bottled water company. Like, I've had so many people bring that up.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is bottled water is not going away. It's not. It's it's the fastest growing industry in CPG and in beverage. And so I can have the biggest impact by changing the industry within the inside. Better to light a candle than curse the darkness, if you will.
Yeah.
And so we were the first premium bottled water to use 100% rPET. So our bottle has a 95% smaller carbon footprint, 90% smaller water footprint. And that's just like one thing. Then we also offset the entirety of our logistics, our manufacturing. Our facility runs off of 33% renewable energy. These are all the type of things that we felt were super, super important in terms of establishing a new industry standard,
right,
with the hopes that other people would realize that was one of the reasons of many why people were adapting our brand and kind of leaving their brand, with the hopes that more and more brands started adopting this as kind of an industry standard, because then the impact that we can have is great. Eventually, I'd like everyone to adopt the nanotechnology that we're trying to launch in 2018. That's going to allow our bottles to degrade if they end up in landfills and oceans. And so, again, it's talking about bigger picture. If something's not going to go away in the next 20 to 30 years, how can I create the most change? And then the last part was, we wanted to be the first triple bottom line. So, that starts with people. So people, planet, profits. So we've addressed, the planet, but the people is super important too. So for every liter that you buy, we donate a week's supply of clean water to people in need in Malawi, Africa. So we install these UN award-winning elephant pumps, primarily in Malawi and Zimbabwe, because we felt like we're so lucky to have this source that has a recharge rate of 1.4 billion gallons a day, where so many people don't have access to clean water. And then additionally, we spend about 2% of our revenues towards local community projects in conservation and education on the Big Island. So yeah, that's kind of the platform, and it's a platform too that it's expensive. No one else is doing anything like that. You have certain companies that are doing like 1%. They're part of the 1% for which is like 1% of profits.
Yeah.
And I understand in terms of like you can have a much greater impact if you're able to scale and have a smaller percentage that's dedicated towards community and charity. But a lot of those companies are making a lot of money, and I think it's really important to have a more sizable impact, especially if you do scale at that point. And so we felt like having a significant give back component to benefit people that are a lot less fortunate than we are,
right.
Is free. It's basically free and powerful marketing, so that we can have more loyal ambassadors and more loyal
Yeah,
consumers.
because I mean, as good as your water is, and as amazing as the mission is, like these aren't priced too high. Like you're not like there's so many other water brands out there that are, you know, priced in the $4, $5, $6, and what would this kind of, you know, 1 liter?
So the 1 liter is, so like Fiji would retail for like typically like $229 to $249 for a 1 liter.
Mm-hmm.
We retail for $249 to $279, and then like Voss would retail for like $279 to $299. So
Yeah.
we're kind of in like a really nice price point,
Right.
which is probably where we'll stay.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't really worried about like price competition because Fiji's already lower than us.
Right.
So it's like we're in a really good spot.
Ryan, how often do you, or are you, shall I say, how often are you faced with situations where you're thinking to yourself, I have no idea what I'm going to do. I've never run into this situation. I don't really know what impact my decision is going to make. And what do you do when you're in those situations?
So earlier I like kind of mentioned the importance
advisors.
of an advisory board. Yeah. So I would, if any entrepreneur that's listening, like the first thing you need to do is put together an advisory board. Don't just have a bunch of people that you have on your deck, you know? Like they need to have some sort of stock options. You need to have rhythms for how many times you're going to be checking in with them on a monthly basis to review your business model, your business. You know, I recognized really early, I think there was a little ego the first couple of years, but that's just because I was like, you know, loving being an entrepreneur, and felt like I was grinding and doing something big, and that was exciting. But you know, very quickly I also realized I didn't know shit, and so you know, it was extremely important. Whenever I face things that I don't understand all the time, over the years I've been able to bring together a team that's able to augment the areas of expertise that I have no expertise in, which has been super, super important for us to continue to scale. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't really recognize that, and they try to do everything, and that's fine maybe the first couple of years, but you're really the only person that's holding yourself back. And so it was the combination of being able to, you know, bring in some of those really good team members, and then also being able, whenever I have a question that I don't know, I have my advisory board on speed dial. And you know, at this point, there's things that I am not going to fully know, and I'm not going to be able to immediately make a decision on, but I'm not necessarily faced with, you know, huge issues where I am at a loss for what I'm going to do, and I just feel like completely helpless, because I've been in that situation so many times before, and I know I've always been able to figure out a solution, or my team has, or I've been able to, you know, talk to people who have been able to provide me different options.
Right.
So there's a certain comfortability and confidence you get over time that really enables you to avoid that feeling of complete helplessness. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, especially as a solo, you know, because my co-founder hasn't been with the company for 3 years, there's a certain bit of, you know, you can definitely have your moments of like loneliness and depression, and kind of feeling that you're, you know, like just overwhelmed because you have no one to share the burden. But again, that's where, you know, your team comes in, your advisors come in, and also having a really good personal life comes in.
Yeah.
You need friends and family, because otherwise you're fucked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, this is such a common thing with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, you know, like yourself, where, you know, you're kind of you hold, like you said, the burden of, you know, whether any decision or any hardship that you're facing, it's all on you pretty much. So, how important, I guess, it is to you, and kind of your thoughts on having that kind of North Star where, you know, it's so easy to get caught up in so many things, you know, from a small scale in your business, or even like things that you may want to venture into that maybe are not so important right now, and you need to kind of focus on your core of your business. Like, how important is that?
It's super important. I mean, the one thing that, you know, I'm the first to say is I am not the best CEO. I've tried to be better, but I'm like a classic kind of visionary CEO and founder. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And I've kind of gotten to a point where I'm like okay with that. I've accepted that. I haven't accepted that to the point where I'm not trying to improve anymore. But I've accepted that, you know, I'm not going to be this all-star. With that being said, it's been nice because when you're growing so fast, you can kind of focus on doubling your growth as really the only prerogative, the only priority. But eventually you get to a point when if you are doubling your growth every year, you start to have a lot of issues with your systems and your ops. And you start to need, as your team builds out, different priorities within each department that filter into your company priorities and your company goals, and it can't just be revenue anymore. Mm-hmm. And so it's funny because if you guys look behind me,
yeah, it's a white wall full of a bunch of writing, and we're trying to figure out what it says.
Yeah, so we actually just did this exercise yesterday, which is basically it shows all the different departments, and basically we're trying to focus on the top 10 critical procedures and processes that we need to that we should prioritize and accomplish this quarter. Mm-hmm. So this is like an example of, it's not just revenue. We're focusing on now the processes that are most important to the company to be able to achieve that revenue goal, those financial goals. Mm-hmm. So we've gotten a lot better. This is like a perfect example. It's right behind me. So whatever.
It's like you're almost like constantly iterating on like every little aspect, and just like any improvement is an improvement.
Yeah, and we have 5 company priorities for next quarter. That's going to not change for next year. But then all of our department priorities have to be related to those priorities. Because at the very least, if we accomplish those things, we'll be in a really, really good position. Mm-hmm. But it took a long time for us to get there. We still have a lot to improve in terms of how we run things. But the best, most well-run companies, that's the way they operate. They aren't scatterbrained. They know what the most important things are. But it's taken us, 5.5 years to really get to a point where we understand how important that is. Mm-hmm. We realized that because we had a lot of issues, because I was off doing my own thing, even though I felt like I was super in tune with every department, there are always things that are falling through the cracks when you're growing so fast. So this helps us kind of really stay on pace.
Yeah. So, I read somewhere that the well that you've rented for 99 years. Is that right?
We have a 99-year lease. So that was the original well. We've switched. And now we have, we basically own our own source, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. So that was a big step for us. Yeah. But yeah, it's same altitude, similar aquifer.
How often do you go to Hawaii?
I'm there a week a month. Yeah.
And you have an office there, correct?
Yeah, so our facility is at the source. It's like not big. It's 8,000 square foot facility. Mm-hmm. It took us years to kind of get up and running. Still have a lot of issues with it. We're actually we're doing an equipment overhaul and putting $1 million into our facility in the next 2 or 3 months to prepare for next year. If you could tell me how difficult it would be to run your own manufacturing operation, it's been very painful. Yeah. But we're finally getting to a point where we're kind of making headway, so I'm excited about that. But yeah, so I'm there about a week a month, but it's not like I'm not like drinking Mai Tais on the beach. I'm like in a manufacturing facility, working on the line with the rest of the team, drinking a lot of water. But yeah, it's a little bit less exotic, if you will. But I hope I try to go paddleboarding in the morning and do stuff like that, which is nice. So yeah.
You talk a lot about the importance of personal life and family and friends. One struggle that I have, I think Patrick has, I think a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, just folks that are trying to be unconventional have, is time management, energy management. How do you manage your time and energy?
For sure. So, I'm going to go ahead and say that I manage my time pretty horribly. I've done a lot better in the last couple of years. I'm like hardcore ADHD.
Self-diagnosed?
So I actually also diagnosed. But I never did Adderall or anything. I probably should have. It would have helped me a lot. But it's... So what happens is I basically... I already have an obsessive mindset. And so, one thing that I've been doing the last year is mapping out my days the night before. That is literally the most important thing for me in terms of time management and being effective with my time. But the problem is, as a CEO who wants to, not micromanage, but at least know every single thing that's going on, that means you're, checking in on a lot of emails. And so the thing that I'm working on right now is, setting up quiet hours to work on my projects for, new product development, for bigger strategic thinking. And then, kind of structuring the rest of my day with emails and meetings at a certain period of time. Mm-hmm. But, I'm the first to say I do not manage my time as well as I could. This is one of those things where I acknowledge my faults and that I need to improve on them. But it's tough when you have a lot of issues coming in at you all the time. Yeah. Things change. Mm-hmm. So you really, even if you try to really stay in a rigid structure, you need to be flexible. So that's why I'm not super hard on myself, because at the end of the day, if I'm accomplishing what I'm supposed to do as CEO, and I'm still able to make sure that everyone else is being effective with their time and feeling supported, then I'm okay with being a little ADHD.
Totally. I just wanted to kind of quickly plug in why we're doing this. It was because, we listen to those podcasts like How I Built This and all those other entrepreneurial business marketing type podcasts. And a lot of times it's stories of super successful multi-billion-dollar company, multi-billionaires that are, at the end of their careers most likely than not. Sure. And, I think they've either forgotten the struggles that they gone through when they were building the company, or just as early stage entrepreneurs. But I think that's why Patrick and I sat down and we said, we really want to hear about what founders are doing in the beginning, when they're just founding these companies, or the struggles that they're enduring right now, because I think that there's more value in that for just listeners in general, about hearing those struggles, hearing the problems that you're facing as an entrepreneur, as a founder, as opposed to somebody who's reached that point of high success. And, they probably forgotten all the things that they went through. So, for Ryan Emmons, what does Ryan Emmons see himself, or how does he see himself in the next, 10 years? Is it still with Waiakea? Is it, working on several different projects?
For sure. Well, I would start with, I think it's super important to document, the hardships to a certain extent, without getting bogged down and depressed with all the shit that you've gone through. So I actually kept a list. And if you guys saw my list, I'm not gonna share it because it has some private details, but you would be what the fuck? It's really, really disheartening to see all the catastrophic issues that could have put us out of business. Mm. But I do it because I can refer back. I actually stopped doing that because it was just at this point, I can't keep on doing this. There's so many different things. Okay, I get it. That was a phase that I'd like to put behind me and start focusing on the positive things. But so I want to start off with saying every entrepreneur has those moments. Some have a lot more of them than others. I have a lot of advisors that have launched CPG companies, and everyone has their own problems, and some industries are harder than others. Most industries are going to be difficult in some ways. All of my advisors and mentors have told me that we've dealt with more bullshit than they could have ever imagined. But that being said, I'm never going to forget those things, and that just makes me appreciate more where we are and where we're going. So over the next 10, 15 years, I have no idea what the future holds. I mean, my goal is to really bring this brand and make it an international brand. And we have some partners that we think can really help us be there, that have similar core values, such as Hawaiian, who are investors, which is and their goal is to really put Hawaiian foods and beverages on the map globally. And I want to be there as long as I can to kind of guide that vision. But eventually, I'm the first to say again. I think we could bring in a better, president or CEO that could help operate the company, or we have a VP of Ops with someone that's more internal ops. And, I kind of maintain more of the strategic product development, maybe CMO or just, chairman role. But I'm going to be here as long as I need to make sure that it's in good hands. Eventually, if we might get some good opportunities, and I might decide to take a breather and go elsewhere, which I probably would like sooner rather than later. But that breather might just be me taking some time off and having the first actual vacation that I've had in 5.5 years. You know what I mean? So at this point, I think
not counting Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely not counting Hawaii. But seriously, I love my brand and I love my company. But I'm open to wherever the future takes me.
Well, Ryan, it's been a great conversation. It's been 5 years. You've built an amazing brand so far.
Man.
So, no doubt you're gonna continue to grow and be successful. So, really great chatting with you. Thanks so much for being on the show. And
sure,
all the best.
The best of luck with everything.
Awesome. Thanks.